All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Just a few quick announcements before we get started. This will be recorded and available for download in some format that Mark would communicate with you all. And also, as we go through, if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer those at the end. We have plenty of time for that. So if you do have those questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, and then we'll collect those and answer those as we get through the end. So that's how we'll do that. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, we are here today to talk about room selection for our rising second-year students. And so my name is Brian Woodruff. I'm the director of the Campus Services Center office, officially there, the Director of Housing and Operational Services.
Hello, my name is Joe Hawkins. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Office of Residence Life. I specifically oversee Western Campus. I'm also responsible for RA recruitment and selection.
All right, so today we're going to talk about some of the important bits and pieces about signing up for housing for next year for the students who are going to be second year. Want to talk just quickly about the residency requirement. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about student-created living learning communities, sorority process, the general process, which is what most students will go through, as well as information about becoming an RA. So first off, the second-year residency requirement is an important topic we always want to touch on. At Miami, we value the residential experience, and that is why all first and second-year students are required to live on campus. And so this is why you're probably here on this webinar, is because you know this and you're looking forward to getting things set up for next year for your student. So we do have a few exemptions. If anyone has a student who is going to be part of a fraternity, they'll go through a particular process for that through the Cliff Alexander office that handles exemptions for fraternities. And also we have a small number of students who do request to commute from home, or maybe they're over 21 or they've already had 2 years at another institution. Those are some of those exemptions. But by and large, everyone does live on campus for their second year. And so that's something important to keep in mind and remember, just in case your student would be thinking about their plans for next year. We wouldn't want them to accidentally sign up to live off campus or anything like that. Want to always remember that we do have the 2-year requirement.
Rising first-year students can, we really value living learning communities. We want to integrate a student's academic experience and curiosities and passions into their living experience, residential experience. So we have an opportunity called student-created communities where students can propose their own LLC of sorts, their own living learning community of sorts. So this is generally for first-year students, although upper-class students can make applications as well. And they basically will put together a pitch for a community. They will fill out an application. They will give a presentation. They have to seek out a faculty advisor. And then they go through the application process. And if approved, they will be given some priority housing opportunities so that their community can be placed together, and then they'll be supported through the course of the year with resources, financially and staff-wise, to make their experience possible. Some of the potential themes include we've had multicultural language, arts, and cinema. We've had what was called DIET, the Dietary Information Education Team. We've had extensions of first-year communities that we don't have formal second-year versions of, like Celebrate the Arts version 2, Social Justice 2.0, and then some other groups that have just sort of stuck around for a while, like Cheer Us On, which is a collection of athletes that seek to support each other and other athletes across campus. The application can be found if you go to miamioh.edu/ to the Residence Life page, and then look for the look for the community options page. There's some information there. So the application opens on December 2nd, again available from the Residence Life's community options page. The applications then are due online by February 9th. Group presentations will occur between February 17th and February 20th. Those presentations are about a 10-minute presentation that they sit in front of Some folks from Campus Services Office, some folks from Residence Life. We'll try to bring in some current leaders from existing student-created communities for them to pitch their idea and answer some questions about how they will how they'll translate their vision into a success. Decisions will be made and notifications will be sent out by March 2nd, and then they'll have about a week to complete their housing contracts. If the students want to live in that space, they'll have to go ahead and sign the housing contract so we can place them. And then there'll be a training session in late spring for the leadership of those organizations to help them prepare for the coming academic year.
All right, so another specialized process that we have is the sorority corridor housing process. So this is for current first-year women who will be new to the sorority and will be therefore living in the corridors along with members of their chapter. So this is something that is designated. These communities are in specific halls. So they're in Hamilton, Minnick, Scott, Richard, and McCracken halls. Typically within those somewhere within those halls are also sorority suites that are used as meeting spaces for the sorority chapters. So this is a process that happens typically after spring break and is coordinated in a joint effort with the Cliff Alexander Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. So the women would be going through that process if they're joining a sorority, would then be on various lists and would receive information about how they'll sign up for rooms. And when they do that, they'll actually be able to go right into the housing system and choose only the rooms that are part of their sorority corridor if they're part of that process. So for students who choose not to do the student-created or the sorority, which most students will be doing the general process, so this is really for most students, the largest number, we will have an online process. It's really convenient, it's simple, that takes place for those students to sign up for their rooms for the next year. So this, it's a flexible process. You can search for rooms, you can choose roommates, all those types of things. It's all done online, very convenient. So here's a quick little snapshot of what that timeline will look like. So again, this all happens online through the online housing account process, which is the same place that your student would have gone when they were confirming their housing application for the current year. So when they went on to choose their meal plan and all of those other things, sign their housing contract, it's going to be the exact same portal, same website. So this will happen in mid-spring semester. So we'll be sending out more communication to students in the coming months with more details about that. But this process typically occurs beginning in March. You can see here the first step will be anyone who wants to organize roommate groups. So the way the system works is if you want a specific roommate, if you know you have somebody in mind you want to search for, or maybe you want to just search for, in general, someone who has similar interests in things like you. That all can be done early, and in fact needs to be done early, because what happens is if you find your roommate you want, you go ahead and get what's called a roommate group confirmed with as many as 2 members up to 4 members. Get that set up in the system, and that way when you actually go into the room selection, whoever has the earliest time slot can just assign the whole group into a room. So that's an important thing to get done ahead of time. And so we do open that up in typically early March. And again, we'll be sending all this out in emails in the coming months. But we open that part of the process up early to let students go ahead and get their groups in order if they have one. And then in early April, we'll be providing the lottery time slots to go in and choose a room. And so typically, lottery times will occur over 3 to 4 days in April. And that's something that's generated randomly by our system. We'll email those out, and it will tell each student, here's the time that you get to go in and choose a room. And as I mentioned, if there's a roommate group already put together, whoever had the earliest time slot is able to assign the whole group. So the website here listed is really important. Right now, a lot of the dates are still listed as TBD, to be determined. We're finalizing those, but the general timeline is going to be March and April. But go ahead and check out that website. That's got lots of information, frequently asked questions, and things like that that can be helpful. And once the dates are firmed up, those will all be listed there as well. And that also is a way to get a link to log into the housing portal as well. So that's a great place to go with good information.
Sort of a similar timeline process. As the students are considering where they want to live in their second year or third and fourth year, the resident assistant application is going to deciding to be whether or not to be a resident assistant plays into this. Resident assistants are student leaders who assist in the office of residence life by sort of creating engagement around the residential pillars of success listed here on this page for you. In action, mostly what they do, they foster community in the halls by engaging one-on-one with the students in the hallways, helping build relationships across the students in the community by building programs, conducting introductions, and then they also help maintain the facility by watching for work issues, serve as a resource to students as they encounter obstacles like academic barriers or interpersonal or interpersonal barriers, and then do some policy enforcement. So for that application, the applications are open now. They opened on November 1st. And so you can find that. You can go to miamioh.edu/RA, just the letters R and A, and we'll take you to the RA information page, and it'll have the job description and information about the timeline and a link to the application through the employment page. Applications will remain open until January 10th, at which point they'll close at midnight that night. Students need 2 references. New candidates need 2 references to apply to be an RA. One ideally is from someone in the Office of Residence Life, whether they're your student's current RA, an RA at a previous institution, their CLT advisor, someone like that, but not necessary. That's the ideal application, but they do need 2 references to do that, for their application to be considered complete. And then they will go through a series of interviews. Actually, a recent change is that we won't be doing group process interviews this year, so your students will participate in an hour-long interview experience that involves 2 individuals. So they'll interview with 2 members of our team from the Office of Residence Life twice. So they'll see 4 people over the course and do 2 half-hour interviews. And they'll be able to schedule those during the week of February 10th through the 15th. After that, selection letters will be sent out on March 13th by 5 p.m. And then we'll need the students to accept or decline those positions by March 20th of 2020. Okay, so what questions do you all have for us? There's one here, a little about clarifying. Another question.
So while y'all are thinking of some questions out there, just wanted to add in a piece we mentioned briefly. There's some exemptions that can happen. Fraternity exemption is one. There's a process for that for the men who would be joining a fraternity and want to apply for that. That's all done through the Cliff Alexander office. There are various grade point average and student conduct requirements associated with that as well. And so those would be things to keep in mind. The other piece is for anyone who might be considering an exemption, which again, it's a pretty small number, but if any of you were for your students, it's important to fill out those exemption requests, which all can be found on our housing website. But you'll want to do that before signing up for housing again. So once you do the housing application and sign that contract again, you're no longer eligible for the exemption. So something important to think about if your student is thinking of commuting for their second year or joining a fraternity. In those cases, you'll want to hold off on participating in room selection until you've kind of finalized those plans. We do guarantee housing for our rising second year students, so even if you had a student who, for a variety of reasons, ended up waiting a little bit longer, not a problem, because we do guarantee that we have housing for everyone required. All right, so we do have a question here. about the general room selection process and how students will know which rooms are available. And so that will be when the lottery time is made available and they're able to go in and choose their rooms, they will be able to filter. It's a really convenient selection process online that comes up. So you would initiate the application process and be able to filter by room type, area of campus, building, and it's going to show you the rooms that are available. You can see more information about them. There's a picture of the hall. There will be dimensions of the room, size, all those sorts of things. If there's currently a roommate in it and you're by yourself, you'll be able to see who the other occupant is in the room already. So you'll see all those then. As far as generally what halls are available, that does change somewhat. We have a lot of halls that are mixed, upper class and first year. We have some locations that are typically always second year and older. Examples would be Heritage Commons Apartments, Bishop Hall, Beechwood, Stonebridge, Withrow. I could go on for a little bit. Those are some of the halls. We have some mixed halls, which are typically first year and upper class. Denison Hall would be an example of that. There's a handful of those around as well. So it does vary. Look at, let's see here, got a couple other questions. Requirements for living at Heritage Commons. There are really no requirements other than that there would be an available space and that you'd be a second year or older student. So that would be all of you and your students who are part of this. Those apartments are just like any other on-campus location in that they are available on the room selection website that you could choose from. Those are 4-bedroom apartments, but each student would choose their own bedroom. However, if your student was someone who had organized a roommate group of 4 and there was a whole open apartment, you could hypothetically be able to go in and assign all 4 roommates into the bedrooms during that room selection process. One quick thing to note about Heritage Commons is that because they have full kitchens, the meal plan is optional there. Meal plans are required in our residence halls, but at Heritage Commons, they are optional. Let's see here. Any specific requirements for parking in year 2? Not specifically, other than just like the first year, you'd want to log in to your online parking account, and that's going to tell you what you automatically qualify for, which would typically be yellow in most cases, which allows you to park in one of the holding lots. We've got 3 holding lots on the edges of campus. If you would be in a situation, or your student would be, where you have extenuating need for additional parking, that's always something you could fill a form out for exceptional transportation needs within your parking account that could be considered. Let's see here. We've got what room configurations are available for second-year student. It's going to be a variety, so we will have a combination of primarily double rooms is what we have on campus, but there's also will be a number of single rooms, a small number of triples and some quads, and then the Heritage Commons apartments as well. One of the options that will be available is the Miami Inn, which is actually a former hotel that's been a residence hall for some number of years. Those are really neat because it's the same price as another double room in a residence hall, but it actually includes the private bathroom. So it's a double with a private bath, which is quite nice. And those all would be available while the supply lasts out there on the process.
Next question: what is the compensation for the RA position, and is there a discount for their housing cost? So the RA compensation is paid entirely in stipend. We do that for a variety of reasons. Primarily that by doing so, it has less of an impact on financial aid when you start discounting the cost of their housing and their college experience. It has a big impact on eligibility for certain things like loans and even some grants, and so we try to stay away from that. And so RAs are expected to pay for their housing up front, like every other student. the only discount that they might be considered as getting is they don't get a roommate. So they're paying the double rate for whatever the double rate is that is appropriate for their cohort and the type of hall they're in. But they get that room to themselves, with the exception being Heritage Commons. They are all single rooms, and then they have an apartment, so they can bring in some apartment mates to that space if they want to do that, if they have that opportunity. And then, so their stipend then is based on the cost of their room. So the stipends sort of range generally. So it starts with whatever the cost of the room they're assigned to for the year of, for their cohort year. So we go by because we have the cohort tuition promise that includes the housing cost. So whatever that cost for them would be, we add to that $1,000 of just additional RA allowance. And then on top of that, we try to offset the cost of the meal plan. So any hall that requires them to have a meal plan, so basically everywhere but Heritage Commons, we add another $1,000 meal plan allowance. So most stipends run in the range of about, I think, $8,500 for the academic year, and I think it tops out at around $11,500. At the top end for the most expensive housing options we have, with all those differentiations.
All right, a question about single rooms. I know I mentioned that there will be some single rooms available in the process, but that is limited. We have fewer singles than what are demanded, of course, and that's just kind of a reality for us. And we do hold a good number of the singles for medical and disability needs. So there will be some singles available in the room selection process, but once those are gone, we will hold the rest offline for any medical or disability needs. But it does happen that as the summer goes on and we get closer to the school year to begin, that we find out we may not need quite as many as we held, and so typically in late summer we'll start releasing some of those to a waiting list, which students will have the ability to sign up on the singles waiting list during the spring as well. Question about if there's any exemptions or advantages for athletes or honor students. As far as exemptions go, no. The exemptions we have would be for any student who's going to commute from home. And just to clarify on that, home would be considered the home address used at the time of admission based on Ohio Revised Code. For anyone who's 21 years or older by the start of school, anyone who has had 2 or more years after high school graduation of college could be exempt, as well as the fraternity exemption. So those would be the main exemptions. If a student, question of what if off-campus second semester abroad? So generally, one of the benefits of on-campus is that we do allow students, if they're studying abroad, if they're doing an internship, if they're student teaching, anything that would take them away from Oxford for the semester, they can simply fill out a not returning to housing form, which is found on our housing website. Let us know that they'll be away for a semester, and we will suspend their housing assignment and housing contract for the time they're away. Now, if their plans change, and when they return to campus for the second semester, that would still be in place, and then they'd be held to the contract and the requirement when they're here. But regardless of which semester it is, anytime a student is away for a semester, we do suspend that for them. We just need to know about it. A question about details about each hall. We do have that on our website right now. On the miamioh.edu/housing, you can find a link that is called Residence Halls, and that's going to show just details about all of the halls that we have on campus. Kind of generally what the cost is to live there, any amenities, some general information is all out there now. You can always read up on that. Another question about honors. As far as any kind of priority, and no, we don't. We do have the Honors Living Learning Community for our first-year students, but we don't have anything specific for second-year students for that. All right. Let's see here. So, question about renovations that we're doing on residence halls. And currently Stanton Hall is a hall that's being renovated as we speak, and that'll be online in the fall. So that is happening, and that'll be ready in the fall. Let's see here. So if somebody is considering joining a sorority and living in that sorority hall, would the process be to complete, what would the process look like? And so basically, lots of details will be coming out from the sorority office, the Cliff Alexander Office of Sorority Life. They'll be sending out details about it. There's actually a specific room selection process for that, and so that will all be coming out here over the next, I would say, couple months, details about that. But basically, those students get an opportunity to go in. They'll get lottery times. They'll get opportunity in the system early to go in and choose from their specific corridor. So we mark in the system that this corridor is for this particular chapter, and this one's for this, and these beds are for that chapter. And then the women can go in and only see the beds that are marked for their chapter. So they'll get to do that. And just to follow up on that, the standard expectation is that the women will live in the corridor associated with their chapter. They're not required to, but they are expected to. Any other questions? All right, well, like I said, we will be sending out lots of communication over the next couple months. Be on the lookout on the parents' Facebook page, Parents Communications and Newsletters. That's where you all will be able to see information. The Campus Services Center will be communicating directly with students on details. So please encourage your students to watch their emails and always look out for important details from us. And we are always here to answer questions as well. So visit us at miamioh.edu/housing. You can find all of our contact info as well as links to the Residence Life page as well. So thanks everybody for checking in with us today.